If you're reading this line, then the delay in your life just ended. Not tomorrow, not after one more test. Right now, in this exact moment, while your eyes are moving across these words, something that has been held back is being released. I need you to stay with me, because what I am about to say will explain the years you could not explain, the doors that would not open, the prayers that seemed to fall into silence. You were not forgotten. You were not skipped over. You were held in a waiting room that had a purpose, and that room has just been unlocked. I know what the waiting did to you. I know how it made you question whether you were doing something wrong. You looked around at people who did less, prayed less, believed less, and yet moved faster. And something inside you whispered the cruelest question a soul can ask. What is wrong with me? I am telling you today that nothing was ever wrong with you. Something was being built inside you that could not be rushed, and now it is finished. Type Amen if you receive this. There is a difference between a delay and a denial, and most people never learn it. A denial closes the door and walks away. A delay keeps the door closed while the room behind it is being prepared. You have been standing at a closed door thinking you were rejected, when in truth you were being protected from walking into a room that was not ready to receive you. The furniture was not in place. The people were not in position. The version of you that would have walked in 3 years ago would have been crushed by what was inside. You have prayed the same prayer so many times that the words started to feel hollow in your own mouth. You said them anyway. You kept showing up when there was no evidence that showing up mattered. And I want you to understand something about those unanswered nights. Every single one of them was recorded. Every tear that fell into your pillow when no one was awake to see it was collected. Nothing you offered in the dark was wasted in the light. The reason this message is reaching you now, in this specific season, is because the internal work has reached completion. There was a version of you that needed to die before this could come. Not your body, your dependence. Your need to control every outcome. Your habit of forcing what should have flowed. That version of you has been quietly dissolving through everything you endured, and you did not even notice it happening. Pause for a moment, and gently, like this video, as an act of agreement. Not because a number matters, but because agreement anchors what is being released. Let me tell you what the delay actually did, because you have only seen the cost. You have not yet seen the construction. Every month that you waited, something was being strengthened in you that will now carry weight without breaking. Character does not grow in comfort. Discernment does not grow in ease. The ability to hold blessing without being destroyed by it is a skill, and it is only learned in the waiting room. I want you to think about what happens to a person who receives too much too early. You have seen it. Everyone has. Someone gets the thing they wanted before the inside of them was capable of holding it, and within a few years the thing has eaten them. It did not bless them, it exposed them. Whatever was unresolved in them got amplified, because that is what increase does. Increase does not change your character, it magnifies it. So if there was still bitterness in you, increase would have magnified the bitterness. If there was still a need to prove yourself, increase would have magnified the proving until it consumed every relationship you had. If there was still a fear of losing, increase would have magnified the fear until you could not sleep at night guarding something you were supposed to enjoy. The delay was not cruelty. The delay was mercy expressed in a language you could not read at the time. Think about who you were before this season began. Think honestly. You wanted the same thing you want now, but you wanted it for different reasons. There was a hunger in you that was tied to proving something. To someone. Maybe to a parent who never said it was enough. Maybe to a version of yourself that felt behind. And if it had come then, it would have fed the wrong thing inside you. It would have become another way to hide. But the waiting burned that out. Slowly, painfully, without asking your permission. And what remains now is someone who wants the same thing, but wants it clean, wants it for the right reason, wants it without needing it to complete them. That is the person the door was waiting for. Type 777 if you believe. There is a moment in every long delay where a person stops praying with expectation and starts praying out of habit. That is the most dangerous point, and many never come back from it. But you did something quiet and remarkable. You kept the flame alive even when you could not feel the heat. You showed up in the empty room. You spoke into what felt like nothing. And that faithfulness in the absence of evidence is the rarest thing a human being can produce. I want you to understand how rare it actually is, because you have been treating it as ordinary. Most people require feedback to continue. They need a sign within a certain window, or they quietly withdraw. They do not announce their withdrawal. They just stop expecting, and the stopping happens so gradually that they never notice the exact day they gave up. You came close to that day more than once. You may have even crossed it briefly, but you came back. And the coming back is what counts. Nobody applauded that. Nobody knew. There was no ceremony for the night you decided to keep going when there was no reason to, but it registered. It registered more than the things people did applaud. Now I want to address the thing you have not said out loud. The bitterness. Do not be ashamed of it. Somewhere in this waiting, a resentment formed toward the people who moved ahead, toward a life that seemed to hand others what you had begged for, maybe even toward me. You buried it because you thought spiritual people are not supposed to feel that way, but burying it did not remove it. It only moved it deeper. I am not asking you to pretend it was not there. I am asking you to release it now, because it is the last thing holding the door. Bitterness is heavy, and what is coming requires open hands. You cannot receive with a clenched fist, so let it go. Not because they deserved your forgiveness, but because you deserve your freedom. Feel that. Something just loosened in your chest. Let me be more specific about how bitterness operates, because naming it vaguely lets it survive. Bitterness does not usually show up as hatred. It shows up as commentary. A small internal remark when you hear someone's good news. A slight tightening when a name comes up. A story you tell yourself about why they got it easy. A story you have never verified but have repeated so many times it feels like fact. That is where it lives. In the commentary. And the commentary costs you more than it costs them, because they cannot hear it and you cannot stop hearing it. So today, when the commentary rises, do not fight it, just notice it and let it pass without adding a second sentence to it. That is how bitterness dies. Not through a dramatic act of forgiveness, but through 1,000 small refusals to continue the story. You have been carrying an invisible clock, a timeline you built when you were younger, full of ages and milestones and comparisons. By this age I should have. By this year, I would have. That clock has been torturing you, and I want to tell you something that will sound strange at first. That clock was never mine. You built it. You inherited it from a culture obsessed with speed, and from people whose lives you only saw from the outside. I do not measure your life against a stranger's highlight reel. I measure it against the design that was written for you before you had a name. And in that design, this exact year is not late, it is on time. Everything you thought you lost to the delay is still accounted for in the total. Nothing has been permanently removed. It has been redistributed. Consider how strange that clock actually is when you examine it. Where did the number come from? Who decided that a certain thing had to happen by a certain age? You did not choose that number through wisdom. You absorbed it. Probably from a movie or from an offhand comment someone made when you were young enough to take it as law, or from watching one person's life and assuming their sequence was the universal sequence. And then you spent years measuring yourself against a rule that no one ever actually wrote down. Take the clock off the wall. Not the discipline, not the intention, just the arbitrary deadline that has been generating shame without generating progress. Shame has never once produced a good decision in the history of human beings. It only produces hiding, and hiding produces more delay. Type 1111 if you trust the timing. Now hear me carefully, because this is where many people stumble. When a delay ends, it does not always end with noise. You are expecting thunder. You are expecting a phone call that changes everything, a moment so obvious that no one could deny it happened. Sometimes it comes that way, but more often, the end of a delay begins as a quiet ease. A door that used to stick suddenly opens. A conversation that used to go nowhere suddenly moves. A weight you had grown so used to that you forgot it was there simply is not there one morning. If you are waiting only for the dramatic sign, you may miss the actual arrival. Learn to notice the small shifts, because the small shifts are the first evidence. Watch for the moment when something that used to require 10 calls requires 1. Watch for the person who reaches out for no reason. Watch for the strange sense of calm about a situation that used to make your stomach turn. That calm is not you giving up. That calm is you being released. Here is another form the arrival takes, and almost nobody recognizes it. Sometimes the first sign is that something you were dreading simply does not happen. The bill you feared did not come. The confrontation you rehearsed for a week dissolved before it started. The person you were bracing for was kind instead. You will barely register these moments because avoided disasters do not feel like anything. They feel like a normal Tuesday. But they are not normal. They are interventions you were not permitted to see. Start counting them. Keep a small list of things that could have gone badly and did not. Within a month, that list will disturb you in the best possible way. You will realize how much has been quietly happening on your behalf while you were focused entirely on what had not yet happened. There is something else I need you to understand about the years behind you. Some of the closed doors were not delays at all. They were rescues. You wept over a door that would have led you into a room full of people who would have drained the life out of you. You grieved an opportunity that would have consumed the exact years you needed for something better. You mourned a relationship that would have quietly dismantled you over a decade. You did not have the information at the time, you only had the pain. So you assumed the pain meant loss. But some of the greatest kindnesses in your life came disguised as disappointment, and you will not fully understand this until you are far enough down the road to look back with clear eyes. One day you will thank the silence more than you ever thanked the answers. Say it with me. Some of my greatest protections looked like rejections. Think of one specific door that closed on you 3 or more years ago. Pick one. Now trace what your life would look like if it had opened. Follow the line honestly. Where would you be living? Who would you be spending your days with? What would you have had to become to survive in that room? Most people, when they do this exercise carefully, feel a chill. Not because the alternative was catastrophic, but because they realize they would have been mildly, permanently smaller. They would have settled into something that fit and stopped growing. The door that closed was the only thing that kept them from a comfortable stagnation they would never have found the courage to leave. That is what you were spared, and you have been mourning it for years. I know what the waiting did to your body. You may not connect the two, but I do. The tension in your shoulders, the way you wake before the alarm with a knot already forming, the way your mind runs scenarios at 2 in the morning that will never happen. That is what years of unresolved waiting does to a nervous system. It teaches the body that peace is temporary and danger is permanent. So part of what is being released now is not just an outcome, it is a repair. Your body has to be taught a new baseline, and that takes time, which is why you must be patient with yourself in the coming weeks. You will have moments where good news arrives and instead of joy you feel suspicion. That is not ingratitude, that is scar tissue. Give it grace. It will soften. Let me tell you how the repair actually happens, because it is not mystical and it is not instant. It happens through repeated experiences of safety that your body slowly accepts as real. The first time peace arrives, your body will reject it as a trick. The second time, it will remain alert. The fifth time, something in you begins to lower its guard. By the 20th time, your shoulders drop without you instructing them to. That is the timeline. 20 experiences of safety, not one. So do not measure your healing by whether you felt calm today. Measure it by whether calm is becoming more frequent over months. Healing is a trend line, not a moment. Type 222 to receive. There is a reason the delay had to be this long, and I want to give you the honest answer instead of the comfortable one. It was not only about you. There were other people involved whose lives had to move into position first. A person had to make a decision they were not ready to make 3 years ago. A door had to close in someone else's life before it could open in yours. A situation had to fall apart before the pieces could be rearranged. You were never the only variable in the equation. You were one thread in a fabric being woven across many lives at once, and the moment all the threads aligned, the pattern became visible. That alignment has now occurred. This is why the delay is ending now, and not sooner. Not because you finally earned it, but because the whole picture finally matched. That should relieve you. It means your waiting was never a punishment for something you did wrong. It was a coordination. Sit with that for a moment, because it removes a burden you have been carrying without permission. You have spent years auditing yourself, searching your own history for the sin, the mistake, the wrong turn that caused the stall. You have replayed conversations from a decade ago, wondering if that was the moment you disqualified yourself. You did not disqualify yourself. There was no single moment where you fell out of favor. The machinery was simply larger than your view of it, and you were interpreting a wide-angle process through a keyhole. Stop auditing. The audit is closed. The verdict was never guilty. Now let me speak to the part of you that has become afraid of hope, because that is real, and no one talks about it. After enough disappointment, hope starts to feel dangerous. You begin to protect yourself by expecting less. You tell yourself you are being realistic, but what you are actually doing is building armor. And armor keeps out the arrows, but it also keeps out the air. I am asking you to remove one piece of that armor today. Just one, not all of it. You do not have to become naive. You do not have to pretend the last few years did not happen. But allow one small crack of expectation back into your chest. Because what is arriving needs a place to land, and a fully armored heart has no landing space. Try this. Say one sentence out loud that you have been afraid to say. Something might actually be about to change for me. Feel how uncomfortable that is. Feel how your mind rushes to add a disclaimer. Notice it. Then say it again, without the disclaimer. That discomfort is the sound of armor coming loose. I want to be careful here, because there is a false version of hope that I am not asking you to adopt. I am not asking you to force positivity. I am not asking you to declare things you do not believe in a loud voice until you convince yourself. That practice exhausts people and produces nothing, because the mind knows when it is being lied to. Real hope is quieter than that. Real hope is simply the refusal to close the door on possibility. It does not require enthusiasm. It requires only that you leave a small gap where something could enter. You can be tired and still leave the gap. You can be skeptical and still leave the gap. That is enough. That has always been enough. You are going to notice something in the coming season that will surprise you. Certain things will begin to happen without your effort. You have been so conditioned to force that you may not know how to recognize flow. You might even try to interfere with it, adding pressure to something that was already moving on its own. Be careful of that. There is a kind of striving that actually slows things down. Learn the difference between action and anxiety. Action is a step taken from clarity. Anxiety is a step taken from fear. They can look identical from the outside, but they produce completely different results. In this new season, you will be led into action, but it will feel light. It will feel obvious. It will not feel like clawing at a wall. If a decision requires you to abandon your peace to make it, it is not the door. Remember that. Here is a practical test you can use. Before any significant decision, sit with it for one full night, not to overthink it, just to let the initial charge fade. Excitement and panic both fade within 24 hours. What remains after they fade is the actual signal. If in the morning the thing still feels quietly right, move. If in the morning it feels like a weight you talked yourself into, do not move. This one practice will save you more grief in the next 2 years than any amount of research. Type 333 to claim peace. I want to speak about the people who watched you wait. Some of them were kind, some of them were not. Some offered advice that cost them nothing and cost you a great deal. Some quietly assumed you had missed your chance. Some said nothing, but their eyes said everything. You felt it at family gatherings. You felt it in the way conversations shifted when someone asked what you were doing now. You do not owe those people an explanation, and you do not owe them a comeback story. The temptation when a delay ends is to run toward the people who doubted you and show them, resist it. That impulse belongs to the old version of you, the one who needed to prove. The new version does not need witnesses. The new version needs stewardship. Let the change speak on its own timeline. Let people notice slowly. There is a strength in not announcing yourself that you will only understand once you practice it. And here is something that will help you release those people entirely. Most of them were not judging you. They were uncomfortable. Your waiting reminded them of their own unresolved things, and rather than sit in that discomfort, they made a small remark or changed the subject. It was not a verdict on your life. It was an escape from their own. You have been carrying imagined judgments for years. Some of them were never even thought, let alone spoken. Put them down. You have been convicted in a court that never convened. There will also be people who cannot come with you. This is the hardest part of a season shift, and I will not soften it. Some relationships were built on shared struggle. They functioned because both of you were in the same difficulty. When one person moves, the shared ground disappears, and not everyone can adjust. Some will celebrate you, some will pull, some will quietly withdraw. Do not chase them, do not shrink to keep them. And do not judge them harshly either, because their reaction is about their own unresolved waiting, not about you. Bless them and keep moving. Room is being made for people who match where you are going, and that room cannot be made if you are holding every seat for people who no longer fit the vehicle. Some of these separations will not be permanent. That is worth saying, because the fear of losing someone forever makes people cling. A few of these relationships are simply going into a pause. The person needs time to catch up, and you need time to become who you are becoming without managing their reaction. Later, when both of you have changed, the friendship can return in a healthier form. But you cannot force that timeline. You can only release with kindness and leave the door unlocked. Type 555 to affirm. Now let me tell you what to do with the first 30 days after a delay breaks, because this is where many people undo their own breakthrough. The first instinct will be to make up for lost time, to move fast, to say yes to everything, to grab with both hands because you are terrified the window will close again. Do not do that. Speed is not the same as progress. What you lost in the waiting will not be recovered by rushing now. It will be recovered by choosing correctly. One right decision made slowly will restore more than 10 fast decisions made in panic. So go slow. At the exact moment, everything in you screams to go fast. That single discipline will separate you from most people who receive what you are receiving. Ask yourself before every yes, am I saying yes to this because it is right, or because I am afraid nothing else will come? Fear-based yes is how people trade a long delay for a short disaster. Scarcity thinking is the residue of waiting, and it does not disappear the moment conditions improve. A person who went hungry for a long time will overfill their plate even when the kitchen is full. That is not greed, that is memory. And your soul will do exactly the same thing with opportunity if you do not name what is happening. So name it. When you feel the grab reflex, say to yourself, "This is scarcity, not discernment." Then wait one day, the reflex will pass and the clarity will remain. There is something being restored in you that goes deeper than circumstances. Your capacity for joy has been damaged, not destroyed, damaged. You have spent so long in survival that celebration feels foreign. Someone gives you good news and you immediately think about what could go wrong. That is not personality, that is injury. So part of the healing ahead is relearning delight. Small things first. The taste of something you enjoy without rushing through it. A conversation without checking your phone. An hour where you are not solving anything. These are not indulgences, they are rehabilitation. Your soul has to remember that pleasure is not a trap. Give yourself one small joy today with no guilt attached. That is an assignment, not a suggestion. I want to explain why guilt attaches to joy in people who have waited long, because understanding it helps dissolve it. During the hard years, you made an unconscious agreement. You decided that you would not allow yourself to enjoy anything until the situation was resolved. It felt like loyalty. It felt like seriousness. It felt like the appropriate response to a serious problem. But that agreement was never useful. Your withheld joy did not accelerate anything. It only made the waiting heavier and taught your nervous system that pleasure requires permission you are unwilling to grant. Cancel the agreement today, out loud if you can. I no longer require a resolved life in order to enjoy an ordinary morning. I want to return to something I said at the beginning, because it deserves more weight. The delay ended when you were finished, not when you were tired. Those are different conditions. You have been tired for a long time. Tired did not qualify you. Completion did, and you could not see your own completion because a person in the middle of formation never can. Think of anything being made. In the middle of the process, it looks like a mess. Wet clay, scattered parts, half a structure with exposed frames. If you walked into that scene without context, you would assume failure. That is exactly what your life has looked like from the inside for the last several years. Exposed frames, unfinished walls, and you assumed failure. But I was reading the blueprint, not the mess. Type 1212 to claim the shift. Let me address the question you keep circling back to. Why did it hurt so much? If the delay was purposeful, why did it have to include so much pain? Here is the honest answer. Some of the pain was necessary, and some of it was not. Some of it came from the formation. Some of it came from your resistance to the formation, and some of it came from living in a broken world where things simply hurt. I will not pretend every wound had a lesson attached. That is a cruelty people tell each other to make sense of chaos. Some things just hurt. But even the pain that had no purpose will be given meaning now, because I am able to take what was meaningless and assign it value on the other side. That is not the same as causing it. That is redemption. And redemption is different from explanation. You may never get the explanation. You will get the restoration. Choose which one you actually need. I know that answer will frustrate some of you, and I would rather frustrate you with truth than comfort you with a tidy story. There are people who will tell you that everything happened for a reason, and that every loss was orchestrated for your good. Be careful with that teaching. Applied carelessly, it makes people believe that terrible things were designed for them, and that belief poisons trust at the root. What I am telling you is different and, I think, more livable. Not everything that happened was sent, but nothing that happened is wasted. There is a difference between an author writing a tragedy and an author refusing to let a tragedy be the final chapter. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from hoping and being disappointed repeatedly. It is not physical. Sleep does not fix it. It is the fatigue of a heart that has extended itself too many times without return. And I want to name it because you have been carrying it without a word for it, and things without words are harder to release. That fatigue is lifting now, not all at once, in layers. You will notice one morning that getting out of bed does not require the same negotiation it used to. You will notice that a task you had been avoiding for months suddenly gets done in 20 minutes. That is not motivation returning, that is weight leaving. Do not analyze it, just receive it. I want to say something about the years you feel you lost. This is the wound underneath all the others. You look at the calendar and you calculate 3 years, 5 years, a decade, and a voice says, those are gone. You will never get them back. And that voice is telling you a partial truth, which is the most convincing kind of lie. You will not get the days back. That is true. But the days were not empty. Something was deposited in you during them that people who moved quickly do not have. You understand patience in a way that cannot be taught. You understand disappointment without becoming cruel. You understand how to keep going when there is no applause. Those are not small things. In the season ahead, those will be the exact qualities that make you unshakable. The fast climb produces height. The slow climb produces roots. You are going to be glad for the roots when the wind comes. And the wind will come, not as punishment, as weather. Every life encounters seasons of pressure regardless of how well it is going, and the difference between people is not whether the wind arrives, but what happens when it does. The person who ascended quickly discovers they have nothing holding them. The person who ascended slowly barely notices the gust. You have been building an anchor for years without knowing it. When the storm arrives, you will feel the difference immediately, and in that moment you will finally stop resenting the slowness. Type 10 if you walk by faith. Now I want to prepare you for something specific. When the delay breaks, an old fear will resurface, the fear that you will ruin it, that you will finally get the thing and then somehow lose it through your own mistake. This fear is common in people who waited a long time, and it can quietly sabotage everything. Hear this clearly. You are not being handed something fragile. What is being given to you now has been built to withstand your humanity. It does not require perfection from you. It requires presence. You will make mistakes, and it will hold. You will have bad days, and it will hold. The thing that took years to prepare was not made to shatter the first time you stumble. Release the pressure to be flawless. It was never part of the arrangement. Watch for how this fear disguises itself, because it rarely announces itself as fear. It shows up as delay. You will find yourself postponing the very step that would move things forward. You will discover an urgent need to research one more option, prepare one more document, wait for one more perfect condition. That is not diligence. That is fear wearing the costume of responsibility. When you notice yourself preparing endlessly for something you already know how to do, that is the signal. Move anyway. Move imperfectly. Imperfect movement in the right direction beats perfect stillness every time. Something else will happen. You will feel guilt. Guilt that you are moving forward while people you love are still stuck. This is a real and heavy thing, and it stops more breakthroughs than opposition ever does. Understand that your staying behind does not lift anyone else. Your struggle does not pay their debt. There is no ledger where your suffering is transferred to their account. The most useful thing you can do for the people still waiting is to walk through your own door and then leave it open behind you. Be the evidence, be the map. Your progress is not a betrayal of anyone. It is the beginning of their permission. Let that settle before you move on. I have watched people sabotage entire seasons for this reason and never understand why. They receive something good and then unconsciously arrange for it to fail because succeeding while a sibling or a parent or a close friend remains stuck feels like a violation of loyalty. It is not conscious. It is deeper than conscious. It is a childhood agreement about who is allowed to be well. If any part of that describes you, break the agreement today. You are not required to remain in difficulty as an act of solidarity. Nobody was ever helped by a second person drowning next to them. You are entering a season where discernment matters more than effort. In the waiting years, the skill you needed was endurance. Just keep going. Just do not quit. That was the whole assignment. But in the season ahead, endurance alone will not serve you. You will need to choose. And choosing well requires a quiet mind. This is why rest is not optional now. A tired mind makes fast decisions. A rested mind makes right ones. You cannot discern well while running on empty, and you are about to be presented with more options than you have had in years. Some of them will look identical from the outside. Only stillness will show you the difference. So protect your quiet. Guard it like it is currency, because in this season it is. Practically, that means fewer inputs. You do not need 11 opinions on a decision that belongs to you. Each additional voice does not increase clarity. Past a certain point, each additional voice decreases it, because you begin to weigh other people's fears alongside your own and lose the ability to distinguish which is which. Choose two people whose judgment you trust and who genuinely want your good. Ask them, then stop asking. The rest of the counsel you seek is not wisdom gathering, it is anxiety looking for a place to rest. Type amen if you are ready. Let me speak now to the exhaustion of being strong. You have been the one people lean on, the one who handles it, the one who does not fall apart. And somewhere in that role, you stopped being allowed to need anything. You became a function instead of a person. People stopped asking how you were because they assumed you were fine, and you never corrected them because correcting them felt like weakness. That role is being retired. Not your care for people, your performance of invulnerability. You are permitted to need, you are permitted to be carried. There will be people in this next season who are strong enough to hold you, and your task will be to let them, which will feel far more difficult than it sounds. Practice this. The next time someone offers help, say yes instead of no, just once. Watch what happens in you. I know why you built that role. It was not vanity. Somewhere early, you learned that needing things was dangerous, that if you asked, you might be refused, and the refusal would hurt more than the going without. So you became self-sufficient as a form of protection. It worked. That is the tragedy of it. It genuinely protected you for years. But the strategy that saved you at 12 is now the thing isolating you at 40. What protected you in one season imprisons you in the next. You are allowed to retire a strategy that served you honorably. You are not betraying the child who invented it. You are finally releasing them from duty. I want to describe what the coming months will actually feel like, so you are not confused when it does not match your expectation. It will feel like momentum returning to a body that had forgotten how to move. Awkward at first, a little disorienting. You will have moments of exhilaration, followed by moments of doubt, and you will wonder if the doubt means it is not real. It does not. Doubt after long disappointment is a reflex, not a verdict. Let it pass through without letting it steer. Doubt is allowed in the car. Doubt is not allowed to drive. You will also have grief. This surprises people. Why would I grieve when things are finally moving? Because you are leaving a version of yourself behind, and even a painful version was familiar. There is a real loss in becoming someone new. Let yourself feel it. Grief and gratitude can share the same room. They do it all the time. There is one more emotion nobody warns you about, and it is anger. It often arrives after the relief. Once you are safe enough to feel it, the anger about the years surfaces. You may find yourself unexpectedly furious at nothing in particular. That is not a spiritual failure. That is a body finally releasing something it could not afford to release while it was still under pressure. Let it come and let it pass. Do not build a house in it. Do not aim it at people who happen to be nearby. Just let it move through, the way weather moves through a valley, and notice how much lighter you are once it clears. Type 777 again if you feel this. There is one more thing I need to say, and it is the most important. The end of your delay is not the end of your story. It is the removal of an obstacle so the story can continue. Do not build your entire identity around the arrival of one thing. If you do, you will get it, and then find yourself strangely empty, because no single outcome was ever capable of holding the weight you assigned it. What you actually wanted underneath the thing was peace, was proof that you mattered, was permission to stop striving. And I am giving you all three right now, before the thing arrives, so that when it arrives you will receive it as a gift instead of as a rescue. Gifts are enjoyed, rescues are clung to. Learn the difference, and you will never be enslaved by a blessing. You matter without the outcome. You mattered during the delay. You mattered in the years no one clapped. I want you to test that sentence, because I suspect you will resist it. Say it, and notice where the objection rises. Most people find that some part of them insists the mattering must be earned, that it becomes true only upon delivery of results. That belief has driven your entire life, and you have never once examined it. Examine it now. Who taught you that? Was it ever actually true? Have you ever applied that standard to another person you loved? You have not. You have never looked at someone you cared about and thought they would matter more once they achieved something. You extend to everyone else a grace you have systematically denied yourself. Now let me tell you how to hold what is coming. Hold it with open hands, not loose, not careless, open. Closed hands cannot receive more and cannot release what has expired. Open hands can do both. That posture is the entire spiritual discipline of this next chapter, and it is simpler than every complicated thing you have been taught. Every morning, decide once, open hands today. That is it. That is the whole practice. Whatever comes, whatever goes, open hands. You will be amazed how much peace comes from a decision that takes 4 seconds. I know some of you reading this are in a very dark place right now, and words about delay ending feel almost insulting because your situation looks unchanged. I want to speak directly to you. Nothing in your circumstance has to change today for this to be true. A delay ends in the unseen before it ends in the visible. Roots move before shoots appear. What is beginning for you began underground, and underground is invisible by design. You will not have proof for a while. You will have to walk without it. But the absence of proof is not the absence of movement. Farmers have understood this for thousands of years, and it has never once failed them. Give it time. Give it real time. Not 2 weeks of impatient checking. And if you are in the darkest version of this, where you are not sure you can continue at all, I want to speak even more plainly. You do not have to feel hopeful to survive today. You only have to survive today. Hope can arrive later. Feeling can arrive later. Your only assignment right now is to remain, and remaining is enough. It has always been enough. There are people alive today who once thought they would not be, and every one of them will tell you the same thing. The situation that felt permanent was not permanent. It only felt that way because despair lies about duration. That is its single trick. It takes a temporary condition and presents it as a permanent identity. Do not believe the duration. Believe the day in front of you. Type 1111 if you can wait well. There is a specific instruction for you now, and it is simple enough that you will be tempted to skip it. Write down today's date. Somewhere you will find it again. On a page, in a note, on the inside cover of something, just the date. No explanation, because in a year you will look back and you will want to know exactly when the ground shifted, and you will not remember unless you mark it. This is not superstition. It is testimony. Human beings forget their own rescues with astonishing speed. The mark is for the future version of you who will need evidence on a hard day. Do it now, then come back. While you are there, add one more thing beneath the date. Write a single sentence describing where you are today. Not a wish, a description, just the honest state of things. Because the value of that page will not be the date alone. The value will be the contrast, when you read it again and realize how much distance was covered without you noticing the walking. People rarely see their own progress in real time. Progress is only visible in comparison, and comparison requires a record. Most people have no record, which is why they are convinced nothing ever changes. Something always changes. They simply have no way to prove it to themselves. I want to speak now about the quiet years, because I think you have misjudged them entirely. You have been calling them wasted. I call them hidden. There is a period in nearly every meaningful life where the person disappears from view and nothing visible occurs. No accolades, no progress that anyone could point to, just a long stretch of ordinary days. And in that hidden period, the actual formation happens. The reason it is hidden is that formation cannot survive an audience. If people had been watching, you would have performed instead of grown. You would have optimized for appearance instead of substance. The obscurity was not neglect. It was the necessary condition for authenticity. You were not overlooked, you were covered. There is a specific gift that comes from the hidden years, and you carry it now whether you know it or not. You developed the ability to do the right thing without an audience. That is the single rarest quality in any human being. Most people's integrity is calibrated to observation. Remove the observers, and the behavior shifts. Yours does not, and it does not because you spent years with no observers at all. That is not a small inheritance. That is the foundation on which everything durable is built. You will be trusted with things others are not trusted with, and it will trace directly back to the years you thought were empty. Type 222 if you receive that. Let me tell you about the second delay, because there usually is one, and nobody prepares people for it. After a door opens, there is often a short pause before anything visible follows. You walk through, and then, for a few weeks, nothing seems to happen. And in that pause, panic returns. You think it was a false alarm. You think you imagined it. That pause is not a reversal. It is a settling. Anything that moves generates a moment of stillness afterward while the new arrangement takes hold. Do not interpret the settling as failure. Do not undo your own step because the results took 30 days instead of 3. Most people who lose their breakthrough lose it in that pause. They panic and reach backward for the familiar thing. Do not reach backward. Stand in the pause and let it complete. I want to give you a picture that may help. Imagine someone who has been pushing against a heavy door for years. Every muscle is engaged. Every day is exertion. Then, one day the door gives way, and they fall forward into an open room, and the first sensation is not triumph, it is disorientation. Their body is still braced against resistance that no longer exists. That is where you are about to be. Braced against something that has already moved. It will take weeks for your body to stop pushing. Be gentle with yourself in that period. You are not doing it wrong. You are simply a person whose muscles have not yet received the news. There is another thing I want to correct, because it has been quietly discouraging you. You believe that if this had been meant for you, it would have been easier. That belief is common, and it is completely backwards. The things that matter most are not the things that come easiest. The correlation runs the other way. Difficulty is not evidence of misalignment. Difficulty is often evidence of significance. That does not mean every difficult thing is meant for you. Some difficulty is a closed door speaking clearly. The distinction is not in the presence of resistance, but in the presence of peace beneath it. When something is yours, there is a strange steadiness underneath the struggle. When something is not yours, the struggle goes all the way down. You know which one you have been carrying. You have always known. I want you to consider how many times you nearly quit and did not. Count them if you can. Most people cannot, because the near quits blur together. But each one was a decision, and each one was made without any reward attached. Those decisions accumulated into a foundation you cannot see and will never fully appreciate. There is a version of you in a parallel life who quit at the third one. That version is not wrong or weak. Quitting is understandable. But that version is not standing where you are standing, and the difference between the two of you is not talent or luck. It is a handful of ordinary Tuesdays where you chose to continue for no reason. Honor those Tuesdays. They built this. Type 333 if you almost quit. I want to talk about what happens to your prayers now, because the relationship changes in this season. For years, your prayers were requests. Please move this, please open that, please make it stop. That was appropriate. That was honest. There is nothing wrong with a prayer that asks. But in this next season, you will find that asking begins to feel strange, because the thing you are asking about is resolving. And many people, when the asking becomes unnecessary, simply stop speaking altogether. They realize their entire relationship was transactional, and they have nothing left to say. Do not let that happen. Learn to speak when there is nothing to request. That is where the real relationship begins, and it is where almost nobody goes, because comfort makes people quiet, in a way suffering never did. Here is how to begin. Tell me about your day, not the problems. The day. What you noticed, what made you laugh, what surprised you. It sounds trivial. It is not. It is the difference between someone who calls only when they need money and someone who calls to talk. You have been the first kind for a long time, and I have not resented it, but I would like to hear the other things too, and I think you would be surprised how much peace comes from a conversation with no agenda. There is a temptation ahead that I need to name directly. When things improve, people slowly stop needing the practices that carried them through. The prayer becomes shorter, the stillness gets crowded out. The gratitude becomes automatic and then absent. It happens so gradually that nobody notices the drift until they are far from shore. Guard against that, not out of fear that everything will be taken away. That is not how it works. Guard against it because the practices were never a fee you paid for the outcome. They were the actual thing. The outcome was secondary. If you lose the practice and keep the outcome, you have traded gold for wrapping paper. Keep the practice, especially when you no longer feel you need it. That is exactly when it matters most. Type 555 to keep the practice. I want to address the people reading this who received their answer years ago and did not recognize it. This is more common than you would believe. Something arrived and you evaluated it against your original expectation, found it did not match, and dismissed it. And the actual answer to a decade of prayer walked past you because it came in the wrong packaging. If that is you, the door has not closed. Things offered are not withdrawn because they were initially declined. But you will need to reconsider something you already rejected, and that requires humility of a particular kind. It requires admitting that your specification may have been wrong while your desire was right. Go back and look at what you dismissed. Not everything, one thing, the one that just came to mind while you read that. That was not a coincidence. There is a broader principle underneath this that will serve you for the rest of your life. You are usually right about what you want, and usually wrong about what form it will take. Your desire is a good instrument. Your prediction is not. So hold the desire firmly and hold the form loosely, and you will stop missing things that were sent directly to you. The people who suffer most in life are not those who wanted the wrong things. They are those who were too specific about how the right thing had to arrive. Now I want to prepare you for the confusion of abundance, because it is real and it catches people off guard. In scarcity, decisions are simple. There is one option, so you take it. In abundance, decisions multiply, and multiplying decisions produce a fatigue that scarcity never did. People often report feeling more overwhelmed after things improve than they did before. That is not ingratitude, and it is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a genuine adjustment cost. You are moving from a system with one lever to a system with 12, and no one handed you a manual. The manual is simpler than you think. Choose based on peace, not potential. Every option will have potential. Only some will have peace. Follow the peace, and you will never need to calculate again. Type Amen if you understand. I want to speak about the version of you that is coming, because you have not met them yet, and you should know what to expect. They are calmer than you, noticeably. Things that consume your entire afternoon will occupy them for 10 minutes. Not because they care less, but because they have a proportion you have not yet developed. They are also less impressed by urgency. You currently treat every urgent thing as important. They have learned the difference, and the learning came from watching several urgent things turn out to be nothing at all. That knowledge changes how a person moves through a day. And they are kinder. Specifically, they are kinder to themselves, which is the change that makes all the other changes possible. You will not become gentle with others while remaining brutal with yourself. It has never worked in that order. Here is how you become that person, and it is not through effort. It is through repetition of small decisions. Each time you choose peace over panic, you move slightly toward them. Each time you refuse to speak cruelly to yourself about a mistake, you move slightly toward them. There is no leap. There is only accumulation, which means the transformation is already underway and has been for some time. You are further along than your self-assessment suggests. You always are. Nobody in the middle of change can measure it accurately, because the measuring instrument is itself changing. There is a question I want to plant in you for the coming season, and I want you to return to it often. What would I do if I were not afraid of losing this? Not, what would you do if you were reckless? What would you do if the fear of loss was simply absent from the calculation? Most people discover that their entire strategy has been organized around protection rather than direction. They are not building towards something, they are defending against something. And a defended life is a small life, no matter how much is inside the walls. You have defended long enough. The siege is lifted. You can build outward now. Type 10 if you are done defending. I want to give you something to hold on the difficult days, because they will still come. The end of a delay does not mean the end of difficulty. It means the end of that particular stuckness. Life will still contain hard weeks. You will still have mornings where you doubt everything I have said here. On those mornings, do not attempt to reconstruct your faith from scratch. That is too much work for a person in that condition. Instead, do one small thing. Look at the date you wrote down. Read the sentence you wrote beneath it. That is all. Let the record speak when your feelings cannot. Evidence outlasts emotion. That is why the record matters. There is one more thing about the difficult days that will help you enormously. Do not make decisions on them. That is the entire strategy. A hard day is not a good day for evaluating your life, your relationships, your direction, or your worth. The instruments are miscalibrated. Everything reads low. Simply survive the day and postpone the conclusions. By the time the fog clears, most of what seemed obvious in the fog will have evaporated. You have proven this to yourself 100 times and forgotten it 100 times. This is the reminder. Let me speak about gratitude, but not the shallow version. I am not asking you to list 3 things you are thankful for and feel nothing. That practice has become so common that it has lost its function entirely. People perform it as a chore and wonder why it does not change them. Real gratitude requires specificity and time. Take one thing, and spend 3 full minutes on it. Trace how it came to you. Consider the number of people and events that had to align for it to exist in your life. Follow the chain backward as far as you can. 3 minutes on one thing will do more than 3 seconds on 10 things. Depth changes the nervous system. Lists do not. Type 222 to practice depth. I want to return to the door imagery one final time, because there is a detail I have not mentioned. When a door opens after a long delay, most people rush through it without looking at the room. They are so relieved to be moving that they do not examine where they have arrived, and months later they discover they are standing somewhere they never actually chose. Walk in slowly, look around, ask whether this room is the one you wanted or simply the first one that opened. Those are not always the same, and the difference will define the next several years of your life. An open door is an invitation, not a command. You are still permitted to decline. That permission is part of the freedom you have been given, and almost nobody uses it because relief makes people obedient in ways that fear never could. There is something I want to say about the people who will arrive in this next season, because they are already on their way, and you will not recognize them at first. They will not look like the people you have known. Some of them will be inconvenient. Some of them will challenge things in you that you had considered settled. That is how you will know they are.